Hello everyone, this is Kevin Annett, Eagle Strong Voice. It's Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. 250 years ago, my ancestor Peter Annett was thrown into prison at age 70 in London, England. He was a free-thinking philosopher and writer, an agitator who ran campaigns to expose the hypocrisy and lies of the Anglican Church and the Crown of England. A no-no back then, and of course still today. So carrying on that family tradition in yet another way, I'm launching a column called Annett's Weekly, a free inquiry and commentary, and of course it's named after the Free Inquirer, which was Peter Annett's title of his pamphlets and his publications. This is published without copyright or illusions every Wednesday, and this is the first of Annett's Weekly. The first reflection is entitled, "What's Good for Albert is Good for You. Notes on a Junkie Nation." Albert Bourla has an appropriately panoramic view of the Hudson River from his palatial mansion in Scarsdale, New York. For on his lofty summit, and as a self-described savior of mankind, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals' CEO has made a deal with a certain prince in return for all the power of the world. Well, some of that arrangement was revealed this past week when, in a candid television interview, Mr. Bourla pontifically announced that his company's so-called COVID vaccination will henceforth be required on an annual basis, and probably even more often than that. The Dark Prince and the drug oligarch shareholders couldn't have been happier. The sky's truly no limit when Beelzebub is on the job, allowing a lowly veterinarian from Thessalonica, Greece, to climb to the height of Big Pharma's corporate dung heap and its subservient governments. But Albert Bourla is just the latest scab on a dead and dying body politic being sucked dry by his master. It should surprise no thinking soul that the land of the fee and the home of the depraved is now run by history's biggest drug dealers posing as public servants. Of course, this is not exactly an original or new arrangement. Back when opium was the drug of manufacturer choice, America's wealthiest families like the DuPonts and the Harrimans became rich because they profited off the suffering and death of millions of addicts. In the mid-19th century, believe it or not, 1/3 of the total wealth of the British Empire came from the Chinese opium trade, the securing of which through 2 bloody wars allowed Queen Vicky to wander her vast estates in the company of her very own Highland stud named John Brown. So, people, let's not snub our nose at junkies. They've made our civilization what it is today. Such as it is. As for Al the Pusher Bourla, he can thank his lucky stars tonight that the Biden administration is scrambling to make his statement and dream come true. Already the White House's stable of groomed scientists are predicting new and somehow foreseen waves of the COVID virus that will return after winter and will require annual or even monthly booster shots. Well, the fact that the only thing being boosted will be Pfizer's mega profits is becoming too obvious and banal even to those who are encumbered with the official 3-second memory. As for the 2024 American election, Trump supporters should step out of their own addiction-induced haze for a moment and remember that Albert Bourla is a mega funder of the Republican Party, a loyal party member and an admitted good friend of Donny Boy. Well, clearly, friends, the fault lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. So how else other than by going cold turkey from the entire arrangement can we undo our over-medicated dependency on a government and an economy of the oligarchs, by the oligarchs, and for the oligarchs? Part 2. The Big Lie Sprouts in Kamloops. Welcome to the 215 Club. I think it was the Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels who observed that a film camera was a better tool than a shovel when it came to concealing a murder weapon. Joe's heirs in the Canadian government are proving him right. This past week, Ottawa's not-so-bright boys announced they're shooting a documentary film on the scene of their own homegrown crime at the misnamed Kamloops Indian Residential School. And where the hell is Kamloops? I can hear my American readers asking. Well, that city is tucked neatly and snugly out between the mountains of central British Columbia, in a pretty valley where children and evidence have been going missing for a long time. Kamloops is the scene of one of the most horrendous crimes by church and state in Canadian history, including murderous drug testing experiments on children by the Catholic Church and their big pharma partners, Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline. But all that's being scrubbed clean these days, ever since the killers discovered a mass grave of children that yours truly has been talking about since the summer of 1998. Well, up here in the Great White North, we call this the 215 Club, because that's the official number of little corpses who the people responsible for them are now saying died in the Kamloops school. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who are not known for their intellectual or political acumen, and who imprisoned and buried the Kamloops children, have announced they're finally investigating themselves, with the same finesse as Al Capone launching an inquiry into all those corpses strewn about his lovely city of Chicago. Well, comic relief aside, the 215 Club is nothing less than the time-honored method of official obfuscation employed by every blood-soaked ruler since Nero. Everywhere you go now in Canada, you see "Remember the 215" signs and stickers all over our oh-so-politically correct Canada. But whatever happened to those 60,000 children, and more than that, who were killed by starvation, torture, murder, sterilization programs in those residential school death camps? Well, they're all down the memory hole, as George Orwell would say, as is our 20-year public campaign that forced this genocide into the open. Just read murderbydecree.com. Well, the question is, how high can an official lie climb? There seems to be no limit in the land of Canada that gave rise to this classic joke. Question: how do you get Canadians to jump into a vat of acid? Answer: easy. Just tell them to. Personally, I'm not holding my breath and will do nothing to constrain my nausea when the Kamloops documentary is unleashed on a blithely self-stupefied Canadian public. But of course, I am half American. And part 3, my favorite reflection, it's called Frank's Turn. A flower sprouts on Main Street. The great melting pot principle is alive and well in my old Skid Row neighborhood of Vancouver's downtown east side. Namely, that everything on the bottom gets burnt and the scum rises to the top. But Frank Erminskid is an exception. The other day on the corner of Main and Hastings Street, where Frank sits like an exiled chieftain, we were engaging in our friendly repartee acquired from a friendship that spanned over 2 decades now. Frank glanced coolly with his aged Cree eyes at a gang of Vancouver's less than finest who were assaulting and handcuffing another homeless Indian man. Bloody cops, he declared, a just rolled doob hanging grimly out of his mouth. And then, disregarding his joint, he angrily yelled across the street, "Hey assholes, you get over here! I want to talk to you!" One of the policemen turned to look at us while his colleagues continued to beat up the Indian. "You heard me," Frank yelled again. "Cut out that shit now!" The cop looked gleeful as he answered Frank's challenge, and no doubt with visions of busted heads dancing in whatever gray matter he possessed, the policeman strode toward us. I recognized him. He wasn't one of those pretty, groomed tourist cops, but a paunchy goon known for his hatred of natives. "You got something to say to me, lip dick?" he screamed at Frank as he towered over him. "I said it already," the Cree man said matter-of-factly, lighting up his joint. "Just leave that guy alone. Do you get off on kicking the shit out of us?" The cop glanced at me suspiciously. "Are you with him?" he demanded. "Absolutely," I answered with a smile. "My name's Kevin Annett." I extended my hand to him, but he replied, "I know who you are, dipstick." He turned back to Frank. "I could haul your ass in again, you know," his large ship announced to the Indian. "Yeah, okay, but what's that going to do besides getting you your quota?" answered Frank. "It's not going to fix anything down here, and you know it, man." His words seemed to deflate the cop, who for the first time looked confused. "Look," said Frank laconically, "we all know the score. The Triad gang's taken over, and they're paying you guys to run out us small-time dealers. And you're told by the city to let the crime spread down here so the property values will crash and their Chinese developer buddies can buy up this whole neighborhood cheap. Do you like being a whore?" The policeman was dumbfounded, speechless. "Oh, look, sorry," added Frank. "I didn't mean to call you a whore. That would insult the girls down here who got to sell their tails to survive. You don't have to do this shit. You could try helping my brother here and me change things for the better. I couldn't restrain myself at that point. I let out a laugh. The cop looked at me, and seeing that I didn't mean to laugh at his expense, he smiled and he let out a little chuckle too. And then he nodded and said to Frank, "Okay, smart guy." And he walked back across the street to his colleagues. A few minutes later, they uncuffed the other Indian and let him go. And then they all walked away through the mounds of garbage, rigs, and stumbling souls inhabiting East Hastings Street. Before he vanished, the cop who'd confronted us turned and nodded to us. And Frank said, "Oh yeah, good one." This is Kevin Annett, Eagle Strong Boy. Stay tuned for more.